My name is Sherry Guess, and this is the Heavily Meddled Podcast. On this podcast, I interview patients, medical professionals, and industry insiders, having important discussions regarding the all too commonly experienced but lesser identified symptoms of hypersensitivity to metals contained in implanted medical and dental hardware, diet, and environments. These metals often cause a variety of dysfunctional immune responses, chronic pain, and other syndromes that fly under the radar of most patients and physicians. During these interviews, the patients and I discuss ideas for managing symptoms, share personal lifestyle modifications, and talk about how to advocate with and educate providers pre- and post-surgery, along with options found for implant removal and the how-to of adverse event reporting. This podcast does not give medical advice. From time to time, I may interview medical professionals that render personal opinions you can use to follow up with your individual provider. Let's roll. Welcome, everybody. We are talking today to my good friend Christian. He is going to share his journey with us. He had a bunch of spine surgery that was kind of a nightmare. We all know that metal allergies are a nightmare. So welcome, Christian. Thank you for coming on today to talk with us and tell us all your good stuff.
Thanks for having me, Sherry. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Why don't you go ahead and start from the beginning? Just give us a little of your background. Tell us about your life, your hobbies, what life was like before your surgery and before all your medical issues started. Who's Christian?
I'm from Shelby Township, Michigan, born and raised here. I was a happy-go-lucky kid when I was a kid. Did all the same things other kids did. Played after school. I had a bunch of friends, and I had a brother, a mom, and a dad. They divorced by the time I was 13. And I lived with my dad 1 year, my mom the next year, back and forth up until the age of, let's just say, 18. Life was pretty good. I was in the plastics industry as a process engineer for 21 years. I switched from a process engineer to a mold flow engineer, which is FEA simulation in the engineering field, and was enjoying life. I had a girlfriend and a niece that still lives with us and just living a normal life. My life was pretty decent up until the surgery.
You did some sports. Besides sports, what other hobbies do you have?
I love playing soccer, being Italian, being in an Italian family. Soccer is like the biggest things. You go to sleep with a soccer ball, you wake up with a soccer ball as a kid. So it's kind of part of my life. I'd always play soccer, even in my 30s to early 40s. I was playing soccer, pickup games of soccer all the time. And I love music. I got a passion for 70s and 80s music. I love music like no tomorrow. I sing. Every once in a while, I would go to karaoke bars and sing. These music, hair metal. I love doing that. I love singing songs. I've always loved music, period. I'd say that's the most thing I was ever passionate about was I always loved music. Because music can always make you feel a certain way, no matter what you're going through in a day, good day or bad day. Certain songs, certain music can just move you.
We are the Heavily Meddled Podcast. Who is your favorite band?
My favorite band is what you see on the shirt. And they're not really heavy metal, right? This is Pink Floyd. This came from my dad, really. My dad got Pink Floyd in my brain since I was a kid. But this is my favorite band because it's in my blood. My favorite music is metal music. It always has been. It doesn't really show up in the age group where I grew up in. I grew up in the 90s, really. And that music was turning into rap and hip hop at the time. And I was still stuck in the 70s and 80s with the music. I just knew what sounded good to me. And I could not change my mind. There was no other music out there to this day. It's always going to be that kind of music. It just still moves me. My favorite metal band, I can't pick one. I'd have to say I like Ronnie James Dio. I like Black Sabbath. There's so many metal bands that I just love. I like the hair metal too. The Rat, the Motley Crue, the Warrants, all that stuff. I love that stuff. I miss that being music to this day. That should be the music we listen to now because the music now is just awful.
It was a good era.
It was the best era. That was when you had real people that really sang. They had good voices and there was real lead guitars. The guitars actually sang also. The guitars sounded amazing and drummers sounded amazing. And it's not there. It's not appreciated. There was a time where people actually got together and listened to music. That just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
I used to do that with my friends back in the day. At my time, it was CDs, right? We'd bring CDs to people's houses and we'd play euchre and listen to music. It was just a good time. We wouldn't drink or do any drugs or nothing like that, but we would just listen to music. And that was it.
Right.
That's all you do.
Gotcha.
I miss those times. But yeah, even to this day, That's my biggest thing was music. That's what I did. My career was just booming, going good. Life was good.
Prior to your illness that we're going to talk about in just a second, what were your goals in life?
My life goals before the injury affected my life and ruined the relationship I have with my girlfriend too. Our goal was to get married and settle down and have a kid and do all the things you're supposed to do. But it kind of put all that stuff kind of on hold, to be honest, because my life got turned upside down. I wasn't the same person. I went from, I know it's so cliche to say happy-go-lucky, but that's what I was. I was happy-go-lucky, always doing stuff, always doing whatever, and just a happy person. Prior to the surgery, I was up for anything. I stopped doing everything that I normally do. I just said, no, man, I can't go because of the shape I'm in. I won't be able to make it through the concert.
Let's get into the meat of what happened and how life progressed from there.
I started to have an issue out of nowhere with my lower back on the left side. It felt like an electrical shock pain. And it happened one time. I remember I was walking in Kroger and I went to the ground. It like shocked me and I just fell to the ground. And as time went on, that pain would come back. That day I was obviously miserable. I had to get help from the ground to the car and back to my house via my girlfriend at the time. That day I was out. And then as time progressed, that kind of went away. But eventually it just kept getting worse as years went by. It went from getting that electrical shock pain once every 4 months, then to once every couple of weeks, then to once a week, and then a couple times a week. So I had to get something done. Ultimately, March 5th of 2021, I decided, and the doctors decided, to get a spinal fusion. When I had a spinal fusion done, my life got turned upside down the day I had that done. The day I left the hospital, I was in the hospital for 2 days. I came home and I went back to the hospital at like 4:00 in the morning with extreme abdominal pain.
Prior to your surgery, you were a super healthy guy, right? Did you have any health issues?
No, I had no allergies to anything. I could eat whatever I want. I could do whatever I want. I never had any kind of allergy reactions to anything in my life whatsoever. I was perfectly healthy. I was pretty fit. I just went to the gym every single day. I never went to the doctor because I had something going on with me. All I had was this agonizing pain in my back that I wanted to take care of.
Did it come from an injury or you were just going through life and it just showed up?
It just showed up. I can't really pinpoint if it came through an injury or not. And sometimes I look back and say, but was I helping a friend move something and it happened that day? I can remember what happened when I fell down. I can remember just walking and getting that shock pain, like, wow, took your breath away. I wish I had an answer for that. I do not.
How did they just arrive at the fact that you needed a fusion? Did you go through all of the imaging, the injection? Did you have contrast? Did you have MRI, CT scan? What did that whole process look like up until your surgery?
First, I had an x-ray done from my primary care physician, and obviously the x-ray doesn't really show much. And then I had a MRI done, and he saw a little bit going on with L4 or L5 area, and he sent me to go get injections. So I went and got some injections, and at the time, injections, unfortunately for me, didn't do anything at all. If anything, it made me worse. After I got the injections, it's like I ended up having leg pain running down the back of my leg all the way down to my foot. That kind of never subsided. That was in 2020. I personally waited till my mom passed away because my mom was in a nursing home to take care of my mom before I said, I'm going to do this fusion because I know the recovery is kind of a long time. After getting the injections, I ended up getting a CAT scan on top of the MRI. After seeing 3 different doctors, 2 out of the 3 doctors said, yeah, a fusion would be good. Obviously, I didn't want to live in the pain I was living in, so I said, let's do the fusion.
You had second and third opinions that concurred.
Yeah. The only thing that was different was the levels they were talking about. One surgeon wanted to do L4 and L5 alone. The other 2 said L3 to L5, but only fuse L4 and L5. Just run screws through L3, not fuse it, but only just to keep that whole segment. I ended up going with the one surgeon out of the 3 that said, let's do L3 to L5 fusion. Again, only fusing the segment of L4 and L5. So I finally said, yeah, I'll do this. I feel bad when I say it, but I waited for my mom to pass. And about 3 months after she passed, I got it done. And like I said, that's when my life got turned upside down. I got the fusion done and I was in horrific pain. And I ended up going back to the hospital, like I said, at 3:00 in the morning after I was in the hospital for, I want to say 2 days. They sent me home. I could barely move. I could barely get around and was laying in my bed. It just felt like my abdominal area was being ripped from the inside all the way through my back. I was crying in pain. I had tears coming out of my eyes in so much pain. So I went back to the hospital, dying in pain. And they readmitted me. And that was a nightmare. They thought I was in there to get drugs, to be honest with you. I was inside the hospital. And the doctor that came and saw me thought I wanted to get some kind of pain medicine or something. But I was dying. I was in so much pain.
When you were in the hospital before you left home, did you have the same level of pain, or was it fine when you came out of surgery, fine for a day or two, and then it got worse and worse, or was it bad right from the start?
It was bad right from the start. I just thought, well, maybe once I get home, I didn't want to come home, but they're discharging me. They put me on so much pain medicine to discharge me that I was kind of out of it while I was getting discharged. I still probably had whatever narcotics and IV drugs in me at the time. So when I got home, I came to a little bit, a couple hours after coming home, and I could start feeling the pain. I started taking whatever pain medicine they gave me at the time. I said, I'm going to take this and take that. It didn't really matter how much I was taking. I was dying. I didn't feel like I was going to make it. So she had to help me get into the car, obviously, get back in the hospital. I go back there. I'm upstairs in the orthopedic center, and somehow they ended up putting me out. I was there the next day. They monitored me. Nothing else got changed. I was still in some pain, but then they sent me home. When I came home, I had maybe 25% less pain. My abdominal was still killing me. My back was still killing me. And I went to go sit down. As I sat down, my hands started shaking. My arms started shaking. I'm going, well, maybe I'm just weak. That's kind of odd. So as time passed, when you get out of surgery, that first 2 weeks is like a blur because you just had a major surgery done, so you're out of it. And you start thinking that, well, if my hands and my arms are feeling swollen and shaking and locking, maybe that's just something because of the surgery. Now that should go away. But then after the 2 weeks and you're starting to heal and you're starting to feel a little bit better to where you're more with it in the head. You don't got all the drugs from the hospital and all you got is your pain medicine and muscle relaxers. You don't got nothing major. And you start just noticing things like, okay, my forearms are locking up. Something's definitely not right here. I'm hearing ringing in my ear. Like, what is going on? I'm starting to feel this overall feeling of sickness, like where you just don't feel well. And it's hard to explain. It's almost like you want to throw up, but you don't have the feeling of puking. It's just more like a hot, cold feeling all over your body, from your head all the way down to your toes, where you just feel extremely weak, extremely sick. So I started taking things away, like maybe the muscle relaxer is doing this to me. So I took that away. I started taking a lot less of the hydrocodone. Instead of taking 10 milligrams 3 times a day, I dropped it down to 5. But the symptoms just started getting worse. I started getting a rash on my face. I started getting a rash on my forehead that was absolutely horrible. I think you've seen that, and maybe later on we can post pictures. All right.
Yes, we have that.
I was trying to work from home. I just started noticing I can see the screen. I can't read an email. I can't read the words. My vision turned into double vision. Now, I already had contacts that are for close-up reading. They're like reading glass contacts, so they're plus 150s. But never had an issue. I've had them for like the last year and a half at the time. I get out of surgery, I cannot see anything up close. So I ended up getting readers on top of the contacts. And I started just getting sicker and sicker and sicker to the point to where I really couldn't do much. I want to say I was kind of bedridden. I could work from home, obviously with my laptop in my bed. I really couldn't sit on a couch for too much time. I couldn't walk around for too much of a lengthy time. My heart rate was up to 115 resting heart rate at all times.
What was your heart rate when you stood up?
When I stood up and I walk around, my heart rate would go to 125, 130, just walking around. And that's abnormal because the only time your heart rate should be at 120, 125 is if you're doing some kind of exercise at a gym or you're doing some work around the house, maybe that's moving furniture. That's the only time it should be that high. My resting heart rate prior to the surgery was always at 85, maybe 90 at the most. So I'm starting to notice all these different things happening, right? And they're happening so fast because you don't live your whole life and then all of a sudden you have all these other issues going on with you. And I started thinking, this is coming to me after the surgery. So, I'm starting to think, did he cut some kind of nerve get cut? Did something happen during the surgery that's affecting my brain? I'm an engineer. I'm not a doctor. What is going on? I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And as more time went on, the worse it would actually get. The worse the shaking would get. The worse my heartbeat. It would literally shake my whole head. I'd try to sleep at night and my head would literally rock back and forth. I would go plenty of days with zero, like 3 days of no sleep until I couldn't take it anymore. Then your body just says, no matter what, you're going to fall asleep. Severe insomnia, because of my heart rate, I could feel it in my throat. I could feel it in my temples, and my temples would be rocking back and forth. It was an absolute nightmare.
Did you ever have any insomnia, anxiety, of course, we know the doctors are going to tell you it was anxiety, et cetera, later in the story, probably, if your story is like everybody else. But did you have any of that before?
No, I would take melatonin every other day to help me go to sleep. Mm-hmm. And that's about it. If I didn't take it, it didn't mean I would not sleep. It just mean maybe instead of going to bed at 11, I'd be going to bed at 12:30, 1 o'clock. That was the difference. I didn't have something forcing me to stay up at night as this was forcing me to stay up. Your heart's racing. It's in your head. Your head's moving back and forth. You have tremors. It's impossible to sleep. On top of that, you have local pain in your back that's not going away, and it's in your abdomen, in your lower abdomen.
Was it confined to your back, or was it your entire body?
No, it was confined. The back pain was horrific, but the tremors were all in the limbs, in my arms, in my hands, in my head, in my face. It was pretty bad in my back, but it was also affecting the front side of me. We'll get into that in a minute, why it was affecting my abdominal area. My lower right side, if I was sitting like I'm sitting now and I went to go stand up, it was horrific. There was no quick way of standing up. I'd have to get up extremely, extremely slow. I could not just go from a sitting position to a standing position naturally. I'd have to literally drag myself over to get up. And enough to bring it to tears. It was that much pain. That went on for 6 months until I could finally get going back and forth with my doctor. I ended up going back to my doctor saying, look, something's really wrong. I really need some help. I'm in more pain than normal. I got all these other symptoms. And I started thinking I'm possibly allergic to the hardware that was put in me at the time, which was titanium.
That entered your mind right at the outset, or it entered your mind after?
Yeah, it entered my mind about 4 months after the surgery. Like, not because of the pain I was in, not because of the horrific back pain and abdominal pain. It was due to all these other symptoms, the vision, the tremors, the forearms locking up, the overall feeling of just feeling sick, no energy, zero energy. Didn't feel like doing anything. You just feel like you have nothing, right? No energy to walk around or do it. All that came about 4 months after I started feeling this stuff. I started thinking, well, what else changed? It's got to be the hardware in me. Maybe because I'm an engineer, I don't know. That's what I started thinking. What changed? It's the surgery. They put hardware in me. Am I reacting to this metal? So I went to my doctor and I said, I think the metal's causing my pain.
Have you ever had a reaction to jewelry or snaps on your jeans or anything? Zero metal reactions or history of that ever?
Zero, none. Never had any of that stuff. So I go to him and I literally beg and plead with him that something's wrong. I got to get the hardware out. I think the total we counted was 12 times in that 6-month period after the surgery of getting brought to the ER. There's plenty of days where I just didn't think I was going to make it. Heart rate would get up to 140. I think I'm about to have a heart attack. And on top of all the pain I'm going through, I was just completely suffering. There's no other way but. Based upon going to the hospital a million times, he finally showed up at the hospital one day I was there and said, I'll take this out for you. I'll take it out a little earlier than I want to. Instead of being 9 months, I'll take it out in 8 months. He goes, it looks like you're fused, so let's take this out. Which ended up being a complete lie. Ended up being totally false. I suffered for another month after. I get in the hospital. He takes the hardware out. I feel no different. He took everything out of me except for the cage. The cage in between the vertebrae was still in me, and that was titanium. So he took the titanium rods and the screws out, but he had to leave the cage in there, which is understandable because that's where the bone grows through. I felt no different. If anything, I felt worse. I left the hospital, I felt worse. I still had chronic, horrible back pain and abdominal pain. I still had all these other symptoms of feeling like I'm dying. So I get back home, and I'm still in the same boat I was prior to getting the hardware removed. I was hoping that was the end all. I'm thinking to myself, all I have in me is this titanium cage. Could this possibly be still causing all these problems? I'm YouTubing, trying to find a solution. If anybody's experiencing anything that I'm talking about. And unfortunately, there's not a ton of people out there experiencing everything I'm talking about. You really won't have any luck finding anybody having the same exact symptoms that you're having. Somehow I went back to an allergy test, a regular allergy test. And they have a strip of titanium, like a titanium test for your back also, along with all these other things you could possibly be allergic to. So I went and had one of those done again. And unfortunately, it came back, you're not allergic to titanium. Nickel, I was +2, which is just a mild reaction to nickel, but titanium, I was fine.
This is a patch test through an allergist?
Correct. Patch test through an allergist. I went to an allergist just to try to see if this titanium cage that's left in me is causing me all these other issues still. And everything came back negative pretty much, except for the nickel being at a +2. That was in November. Months later, we get to April or May. And I found on YouTube metal allergy testing. I think that's what I typed in. And LTT testing came about. So I went to their website and I saw your Facebook post on their website and I read it. And that's how I found out about LTT. There was months after that. I'm on my computer at home going through all the symptoms I just told you about. A ton of pain, just searching on a laptop of anybody else that has this, Googling everything you can possibly think of that has any of these symptoms. And you'll find here and there some people that have some of the symptoms, but nothing comes back to anybody finding a solution or where it's coming from, or if there's a test out there for it. There's a metals test you could take, a blood test, but that just tests for like toxicity of heavy metals in your blood. You know what I mean? It tests for mercury, I think iron and lead. Those are the only three I think it tests for. It doesn't test for if you're reacting to it by any means, right? If it's messing up your immune system, if it's playing a role.
What kind of practitioner was it that did the patch testing? And did they tell you anything about any other tests that might be available for metal? Or once that test came back from them, did you just rule it out?
No, I asked the allergist and he said, it's literally impossible for anybody to be allergic to titanium. Exact words that he said. And that's the exact words my surgeon also told me. Mm-hmm. And that's the exact words the other two surgeons that I saw prior to getting the surgery said the same thing.
We don't know at this point what you're allergic to, right? So it could be titanium. It could be an alloy in the titanium. So they're all just thinking titanium.
They're all just thinking there's no way nobody's allergic to titanium. Sorry, we've done thousands and thousands of surgeries and nobody's allergic to titanium. That's pretty much in your head is what they're telling me. So I still, in my head, thought I was allergic to titanium because that's the only thing that was left in me. So I was determined to think that it's got to be the titanium, whatever other alloys are mixed in it, whatever's causing it, it had something to do with the cage that was in me. So I'm Googling anything I can find, and I'm having major struggles trying to find anything that relates to what I'm feeling, the symptoms that I'm going through, the misery that I'm going through. I couldn't find anything. And this is going on for months. And finally, it was like one night at like 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning, somewhere around there. I barely can see. Got my glasses on top of my contacts so I can read my laptop. And I come across metal allergy testing somehow. I can't remember exactly how I found it, but I found it. And there was two options. There was ELISA testing, but that was all the way out in Germany, I think. And there was LTT testing. And I clicked on that one, and that was in Chicago. And so I got a hold of them in Chicago. I gave them a call, and they sent me the kit. I saw your post.
Where did you see my post? I don't remember where you found me because...
It's actually on the testimonials on their site. They got a bunch of people that have had different types of surgeries, different types of metals in them, and then yours actually showed that.
By their site, you're talking Orthopedic Analysis, correct?
Correct. And this is post-COVID, so everything's still locked down. People still wear masks, all that good stuff. I read your story, and I thought there's a good possibility that this testing works. And I guess as a slight stalker, I tried my best to get a hold of you. I kept calling your phone and left you voicemails. I think I texted you a bunch and finally got a hold of you.
You joined Facebook to get a hold of me. I remember that.
Yeah, just for like 5 minutes. It wasn't long, just enough to get a hold of you. So I finally got a hold of you.
If you're trying to find Christian on Facebook, give it up.
It's definitely not going to happen. So I got a hold of Orthopedic Analysis. I ordered the Panel 2 kit. And unfortunately, it's something that you got to pay out of pocket for. It is what it is, but it's not cheap. You get it sent to your house and you go get your blood drawn either at your local doctor or a blood draw place. But you got to get the order from your doctor. I hate to go backwards now that we went there, but in this time frame, before I got the blood drawn, before I got the kit sent to me, I found a doctor in California to look at my imaging for my back pain. And he looked at my imaging and he said to me, "You're not fused," and showed me how to cut a section. He goes, "If you don't believe me, go to the library, go wherever you got a computer, cut a section on your CAT scan, and you'll see where you're not fused." What he showed me which my doctor here told me I was fused, but I wasn't fused. So I did those exact same steps. I took my disc, I went to the library, I looked, and the hardware was removed except for that cage, but I'm still not fused. So every time I moved, my spine was moving with me. That's where all the humongous back pain was also coming from. I had a surgery scheduled for April in California.
For what purpose?
To redo the fusion. As I ordered the LTT test, I was also scheduling surgery at the same exact time. Doctor in California, because I wasn't fused. I want to know why I was in so much pain.
So just to recap, before you get your diagnosis, you're having the pain, you're not fused. So you're scheduling surgery because regardless of any metal allergy that may or may not present on the test, you've got to have surgery to correct the fact that you're not fused. And now you have no supporting hardware. Okay. I'm with you.
So I have the meeting with a surgeon and he shows me on a Zoom call that I'm not fused. I can see that there's this huge gray area going all the way through the vertebrae that I can see that I'm not fused. So we've scheduled the surgery for April 25th of 2021. Finally, I get the results back from, now I'm trying to time this perfect. I'm trying to time this perfect before my surgery.
Hang on a sec. When you and I talked, when you originally called me, we went through all the symptoms and you were uncertain that there was a metal allergy at all at this point. You're just like, hey, I've got all this pain. I'm bedridden. I am like not living any kind of existence that I want to live. My answer was, of course, I'm not a medical doctor, but I felt like you had enough symptoms and things going on that I felt it was going to be a nickel allergy, and it all added up. And I don't remember. You'll have to tell me. But I think somewhere around here, I told you to take an antihistamine. And when you did, the rash on your face went away. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're allergic to nickel. And I was just convinced that you were going to be allergic to nickel. So pick up from there and tell us about you getting your test results back.
Yep. Actually, you thought it was nickel. I did start taking something, Allegra or whatever, for my rash. It immediately went way down. It almost went completely away. The next couple of days, I think it got pretty clear to where it wasn't noticeable. But I was trying to time this perfect because in my heart of hearts, I wanted to think I wasn't allergic to titanium or nickel or anything. I didn't think I was. I knew I had a surgery coming up, and I knew what the hardware they're going to use was going to be titanium. I just thought I had a failed back surgery, to be 100% honest with you. That's all I thought I had. Mm-hmm. So I got the blood draw. I sent out for the testing. My surgery is for the 25th. I got the test results on the 21st. So I'm already booked to go to California. I'm already booked to have the surgery. I get the results, and it comes back highly reactive to titanium, highly reactive to vanadium. Nickel was at a +2, which was mild. It's not as reactive. So I called my surgeon. I send them the results prior to going there to let them know, hey, we have to use something else besides titanium because I'm reacting to titanium. Within a couple hours, his PA calls me and she cancels my surgery and says, I'm sorry, Mr. DiNicola, but unfortunately, due to the industry, this is what we use in the industry. We use titanium. And it's very rare to see somebody reacting to it, but unfortunately, I have to cancel your surgery. And that was probably one of the lowest moments in my life that I can think of, because when they said they're going to cancel my surgery, I don't know how to say it. I was broken.
But they took your hope away.
Yeah, it took my hope away. I was completely broken. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a little choked up. Give me 1 second. I want to say it was the next day, the surgeon called my phone and he said, listen, I hear you're allergic to oxygen. I said, no, I'm allergic to titanium. He goes, listen, I've never seen anything like that. That's a pretty high number, according to that chart that I looked at. He goes, you're not fused. Just come here and I will get you fused and I'll use carbon fiber. That's what he told me over the phone. Back to being happy again. Okay. I don't have to change flights.
Carbon fiber, for the listeners, does not have any titanium in it. Tell us what you know about carbon fiber. You're an engineer.
Carbon fiber is a non-alloy, it's zero metal. Carbon fiber is made out of glass and other alloys, but they're not metal alloys. It's structurally stronger than titanium and metal put together. But this is where it gets a little weird also. All right. So I get on the flight. We all go there. Me, my girlfriend, my niece. We fly to California. I get there and I'm in the OR and the doctor shows up and he goes, listen, I don't have enough carbon fiber to do your full surgery. He goes, I cannot do your surgery in carbon fiber, but if we go off your LTT test, he goes, you're not reacting to cobalt. If I put a cobalt cage in, and remove your titanium cage, and I put stainless steel screws and rods in. He goes, you should be good to go. I said, okay, because I am dying at this point. Whatever's going to work is going to work. Now the surgery went a little different. He cut me from the front instead of my back. He took out the titanium cage and placed in a cobalt cage and placed one screw in the front. I went back to the hotel after that and stayed for one night at the hotel and came back the following day. So it was like one day in the hospital, I had that surgery done. Went back to the hotel for one day, and the following day after that, came back and had to cut me through the back and add the stainless steel rods and screws. And I felt great. After that surgery, I got up. I felt really good. I didn't have any other symptoms.
And you woke up pain-free from that surgery.
Yeah. When we say pain-free, I had surgical pain. That's all I could feel was outside surgical pain. Nothing really in the spine killing me a bunch. Whatever pain I had, I would call tolerable pain, where this is not going to be debilitating. I'm okay.
So your symptoms, the heart rate, the rash, the systemic pain, the weakness.
The vision all came back. I came back to the hotel. My laptop was open. I didn't need to grab my readers on top of my contacts. I could just read the laptop. And that was the first time I could read the laptop without the readers since the original surgery. So I knew something was up. My heart rate was back to normal. Everything was going good. Now I had surgical pain in the front, surgical pain in the back. So it was a little bit of a double whammy. So that pain still wasn't as bad as my surgery here in Michigan. My heart rate, insomnia, fingers locking up, forearms in a ton of pain. Yeah, none of that was going on. I was feeling great. That was the end of April. When I left there, April 28th. Got home in the morning, April 29th. So beginning of May all the way to June, I was feeling good, getting around, walking around, doing more than I've ever done since March of 2021. And so I think it was middle of June, I started noticing my fingers locking up, and I'm going, well, maybe this is going to go away. Maybe this ain't no big deal. Maybe these metals are just starting to leave my system, and maybe there's just a little bit left in me. You're hoping that there's nothing major going on. Then I start feeling the pressure in my forearms. And I start feeling pain pretty bad in my back. The pain starts coming back from doing absolutely nothing, just waking up feeling this way. There's nothing I did that triggered anything for any of this stuff to happen. About a month and a half after my surgery, I started noticing that almost all my symptoms are coming right back. And I'm miserable because at this point, I'm back at work. I'm back in the office. I'm back doing my normal job. I'm not working from home at this point. But I'm struggling big time because everything's coming back. Every day's a struggle. All I can think about is getting home and laying down. I don't want to do anything else besides get home and lay down. I don't want to go nowhere because you can't control when this stuff happens. When your fingers are locking up, your heart's racing, and you just got this overall feeling of sickness. It's pretty scary. It's like you're locked in your own prison. There's no other way putting it. You're locked in your own prison. You don't know what to do. You can't turn to nobody because if you go to a hospital, they're going to tell you you're crazy. And that's the honest to God truth. When you have an issue like this happening to you and you go to a hospital and tell them, they really look at you crazy when you tell them, not only do I have this wrong with me, but I also got this, heart rate, all this. That automatically makes them think, you're nuts. You need to go see a counselor. Maybe you're depressed. Maybe it's this. They don't really take you serious.
Maybe you're anxious. Maybe you're stressed.
Maybe you're anxious. Yep. They don't take what you're telling them serious. They think that there's something really honestly wrong with you. And so I ended up, same thing. I'm like, I don't have titanium in me. Maybe I'm allergic to cobalt. But based on all the research I did, it's like cobalt's got to be grinding for those ions to be released. It really has to grind. And that's how people get sick from cobalt. When people get hip replacements, it's the cobalt grinding in the socket, releasing the ions. Mm-hmm. In a fusion, it's not really grinding. It's in there. So cobalt was out of my mind. I started thinking, is it nickel? Because stainless steel contains like 15 to 16% nickel. And I got that in my body.
Which most doctors don't understand.
No, they don't. They just think it's stainless steel. Mm-hmm. So I can't really cut my surgeon down in California because he looked at me and goes, look, you're at a +2 for nickel. That's pretty low. So you should be okay. And I said, yeah, maybe I should be okay. So at this point, I'm trying to remember what month it was. It was September. So September. So from the end of April, all of May, June, July, August, September, I'm dying. I'm not feeling good at all. I ordered another LTT test. And I said, let me just see what this is going to show. I don't have titanium in me anymore. Let me order this test. I get the blood drawn. I send it out. It comes back completely positive to nickel. 100% positive, higher than I was with titanium. Nickel was a 7.4 compared to the titanium as a 5.6 and vanadium 5.3.
Because now you've had the exposure to the nickel.
Now I've had the nickel in me for a while, right? So from May to September.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Attention metalheads. Are you struggling with skin rashes, joint and systemic pain, or fatigue that just won't go away? Type 4 metal allergy is often overlooked as a culprit in many of today's chronic illnesses. Get to the root of the problem with ELISA testing. ELISA is a scientifically proven and clinically validated test that measures immune reactivity to metal allergens like nickel, cobalt, and titanium. With fast and reliable results, you can get the answers you need to find relief and live a healthier life. Don't let metal allergies control your life any longer. Visit melisa.org to learn more and schedule your test. Trust us, you'll be glad you did. Melisa, a valuable diagnostic tool in medicine.
So I sent those results to my doctor and not thinking, in all honesty, not thinking that there would be any support with this whatsoever. I sent him these results. I don't mean to scare anybody either when I say this. I wouldn't be here right now. It's not something I want to talk about, but I did not want to live anymore. That was the honest to God truth. I didn't want to live anymore. I didn't want to end my life. I wanted there to be a button I could hit that would just say you're done. I wasn't going to actually do it, but I didn't want to live. I wanted to die in my sleep. That's how miserable I was. So when I sent him my results, the surgeon in California, my results from the LTT test, he set up a meeting with me, a Zoom call, and I didn't have any confidence that he's going to be happy or mad. I didn't think he's going to even care. But he said, immediately, that's got to come out. He says to me, Christian, you're unbelievable. You have too many problems. He goes, we got to get this hardware out. He goes, I had a feeling that maybe you would react a tiny bit to it. He goes, I did not think it'd go up to a 7.4.
And stop for a minute, because we need to tell the listeners what happens here is that you don't show a reaction until you have the exposure. So if you have a test prior to a surgery, you're not necessarily going to show that you're reactive because you haven't had the metal in your body. You don't have the exposure for the immune system to mount a reaction.
That's where everybody has their own opinion, and I'm going to get that out in the field right now. If a friend of mine calls me up and says, Christian, man, I'm going to get a knee replacement, and I don't want to go through what you went through at all, what can I do? Unfortunately, I can't, with confidence, tell them, go get a LTT test right now and you're safe, because it may show that you're not allergic to anything. It might have everything in the mild column. They break it up into categories, right? It might say you're mild on all these different metals. Your brain's going to say, I guess I'm okay, so I can get this done. And you may not react till 4 or 5 months later. And all of a sudden, I keep getting strep throat, my throat's swelling up, my lip notes, I got all these different issues. What's going on? And you're not going to know. It's hard to find unless it's already in you. In my opinion, there's no real test out there yet to let you know for sure, do not get this type of metal installed in your body.
No, you're exactly right.
Or this kind of hardware. So going down this road, I end up going back to him, thank God, in December 2022. I did this during Christmas, and they removed my hardware. They left the cage in, which was cobalt, but cobalt was also my first panel test I took prior to going to California. Cobalt was at a 1.2, very mild range, and the second test I took, cobalt went up to a 1.4. It never went anything higher. So that tells me the cage I'm safe with, but the nickel, the stainless steel, all that has to come out. Now I still have a screw in my front. You could remove the screws in the back. You couldn't remove the screw from the front because you can potentially die from trying to access that screw. Now it's embedded and it's very dangerous, and sure, you know all about that. So
I do, unfortunately.
Long story short, he removed the hardware, and immediately after removing the hardware, when waking up, everything subsided. I felt great. You could tell it was giving me inflammation throughout my whole body. Mm-hmm. It truly, truly was. I was inflamed everywhere. So that came out. I got back to the room. I enjoyed my stay at California for a couple of days. I think I came home on the 23rd. Felt great. And that's my journey. And now we're in the beginning of January. It was 1 month ago that I had the hardware removed. I'm going to the gym. I am back to walking every single day at the gym. I'm still tender in the back area, so I can't really run because all those muscles are still healing from being opened up. But getting that hardware out this time saved my life. I don't even think I'd be talking to anybody right now unless I got that out. Unfortunately, It doesn't matter what doctor you talk to, where you go. I've been in a Cleveland clinic prior to going to California, telling them that I think I'm allergic to titanium, and they all said I was crazy. I've been to all these different neurologists here in Michigan and a bunch of different doctors you can possibly think of, infectious disease doctors, to figure out what was going on. And ultimately, nobody believes you. Nobody cares, and they leave you in the dark. There's no other way I can really say it. You have no hope because they leave you in the dark. You have to be your own advocate. You got to be the one to keep pushing forward to find an answer. And it's not easy. There's no way to say it's easy. You just got to keep doing it. There wasn't something like we have going on right now, people talking about this whatsoever. I couldn't find anything. And you got to keep pushing. If doctors believed in it, if they could at least I've seen at least 20, 30 different doctors. Nobody believed in it. They're saying it's impossible to react. The symptoms you are having either are in your brain or you're crazy or what have you. Nobody believes you. So you have to push forward. You got to make it happen. You have to make it happen for yourself. And you got to have a support system best you can, family around you to help you through this time, because it's a dark time. You feel like there's no hope. But there is hope. There is testing. There is ways.
You got lucky with your surgeon in California in that he didn't think you were crazy. He actually took your LTT test as validation. He actually believed you and he took the step to help you correct it. With this surgeon and the other surgeons, did any of them bring up the metal question? Have you ever had a reaction to jewelry? If they would have, in your case, it probably wouldn't have made a difference. But did it ever come up in conversation pre-surgery?
No. Pre-surgery never came into conversation. Now, one person said, hey, do you react to silver rings or jewelry of any sort? Do you get a rash or a ring around your finger or around your bracelet? Nobody ever asked me any of those questions. I guess that would have been somewhat helpful. But if in the beginning I'm getting titanium, I wouldn't have thought about it. That's the biggest problem. That doesn't really get asked. They tell you what they're putting in you, and you just go, okay, thinking that everything will be fine. And most of the time, people are fine. Most of the time, your average person is okay with this. They get a knee replacement, they're fine. They get a hip replacement, a lot of people are fine. They don't have issues.
Are they?
They live their whole life and they're fine.
Are they? Or do they really not know what to look for?
Or maybe they don't really know what to look for. I don't know if they get to the point to where they're like me and you or other people that we know out there. I think they get maybe, every now and then their elbow is killing them for a month and then it goes away or something. I don't think they get severe issues.
You had a pretty slam dunk relief of your symptoms. However, you still have several things. Even though the big symptoms were gone, you still had some stuff that wasn't right.
Yeah, I still had some stuff that wasn't right. The pain in the back got tremendously better. Let's just say right now I'm like 80% better. I still got the tightness and no debilitating pain. I can do whatever I want to do. It's probably scar tissue. But I was also taking hydrocodone since 2021 every single day, 10 milligrams in the morning, 10 milligrams in the afternoon, and 10 milligrams at night. After he took this hardware out, I stopped taking it. I didn't have enough pain to keep taking this. I'm like, there'd be no point in me taking this. So I completely stopped taking that cold turkey, which was very stupid of me to do. I didn't even think about it. I ended up getting a little bit sick. And that's all my fault, not paying attention. And I should have probably weaned off of it. I got sick for, let's just say, 7 days. That was pretty bad. A lot of going back and forth to the bathroom, sweating at night. Gradually, some of the symptoms came back. I started getting a little bit of knot in my back, some of the other allergy symptoms. I started getting a lot of pressure in my forearms. I started getting a feeling of sickness. My fingers started locking up, not as bad, right? Let's just say like 70% of that was gone, but enough to where I could still feel it's about to happen, right? Not debilitating, but it was pretty bad again. I'm going, what is going on? Like I said, I wasn't taking anything. There's nothing for me to take. I think I contacted you. I'm like, I don't know. I was feeling great. You know, my back's not really killing me, Sherry. Blah, 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 this, blah, blah, that. I think you said, well, you still taking Allegra?
I'm not a doctor. We're just having a friendly conversation. But you called me and you're like, my pain's gone, but I feel like crap. I'm just plowing through my days and I'm tired and I just don't feel like myself.
Yep, that's exactly what it was. And I think you asked me, are you taking the Allegra? I think I said no. I probably stopped taking Allegra right after the surgery. So we're talking maybe a month after the surgery, possibly, right? 1 month exactly after the surgery. I got a hold of you. I remembered I'm going to take Allegra. And so I took the Allegra and it was starting to subside. By the next day, I could feel a lot of the other stuff has gone away. here's the kicker too. It gets a little confusing. But when he took the hardware out, my heart rate still stayed at 85, and the tremors and stuff I wasn't having. I was just having more or less my fingers and my forearms and feeling like complete crap, feeling like I was dying again was happening. I'm going, this is not good. But I didn't have the heart rate issues. Just general signs of whole full body inflammation, except my heart wasn't being affected at this time. And I was able to sleep. It was just waking up going, oh my God, I don't even want to move. I feel dead. So I started taking the Allegra again, and I started feeling better. I try not to eat anything that contains nickel anymore. I try to stay away from anything that's nickel. And so far, so good. Everybody's got their own way of doing it. And I'm not a professional person. I've been eating pretty much meat only. Red meat only. I guess you can call it a carnivore diet. People call it that. I just know that if I eat red meat only, I'm not bringing anything else in. So same thing with coffee. I'm a coffee drinker, and I no longer add cream to my coffee. I just drink black coffee with sugar, and that's it. These creamers, they all have soy in them. I have noticed if I drink coffee with creamer, everything comes back within a couple hours. It triggers enough.
It's interesting to note, we're going to cover this in other episodes, and we've touched on it in some previous episodes, that it's a delayed reaction. So if you eat something that you are reactive to, it doesn't usually show up, at least for me, for 4 to 6 hours, probably for you as well. A lot of people don't realize that there is nickel in the food we consume, in the environment, that when your histamine bucket is empty, it's not a big deal. But when your histamine bucket is full and you have something with nickel in it, or you have water from your stainless steel water bottle, it can literally put all those symptoms over the edge. And I can probably guarantee you, I know for me, you can tell us for you, if any allergist or doctor has had that on their radar or would give any credence to that experience that you've had, that we've had. Do you get credence for that from your doctors?
No, I don't. Whatsoever. I wish I did. No, I do not. Because if I were to take an allergy test right now, a regular allergy test, it would say that I'm a +2 with nickel. They'd say, just try to go on a low nickel diet. Just try your best. You can have some nickel. You can eat, because nickel's in almost everything. You can cook with a stainless steel frying pan that has nickel in it. You can do all these things. Everybody's body is different, right? All of our immune systems are different. So what may not affect you will affect me, right? So if I add hazelnut creamer to my coffee, the delayed reaction is usually 4 to 6 hours later. So unfortunately, none of them believe in anything I'm telling them. And I got 4 primary care physicians to go to.
They still don't believe you, even with your experience that you've just had and your remarkable recovery?
It's on my medical records that he's allergic to nickel and titanium. They believe that. They don't believe about the diet. If I only eat meat, you can have some bread. And it's like, I've tried it. I've tried to do that little cheating and have the bread. I've tried it. And maybe all my symptoms don't come back, but one of them do, right? I'll have tinnitus in my left ear if I eat bread. It'll come and it'll be there for 3-4 days. So I don't eat the bread. I probably didn't mention tinnitus as one of my symptoms, but that was one of my symptoms. Horrible, horrible tinnitus. Not like little ringing all night. You wake up the next day and it's still there. That was one of my symptoms. So for me now, I feel really good. As long as I keep doing what I'm doing, I think I'm in a good spot. I'm going to keep working on my back to make it as strong as I can possibly make it. I'm going to keep going to the gym. I couldn't do this 2 months ago. I was dying 2 months ago. I was still having a stainless steel in my back. Once that got removed, I have function. I can go in my car. I can go places. I have energy. I can do whatever I want to do. There's nothing stopping me.
That's fantastic. Tell me, how did this change you from who are you now compared to who you were? And what forms of self-care do you practice going forward?
I don't mean to laugh. Prior to the surgeries, I was carefree. I thought I was invincible prior to surgeries. I really thought once I got a surgery, I'd be back on my feet, going back to playing sport. I didn't think that my life was going to get turned upside down. I guess you can say I kind of took life for granted prior to having the surgery. All I want to do now, I want to stay healthy. I want to help people that have the same issues similar to me from being affected by metal allergies. If I can help people, that'll bring the biggest smile upon my face. I'll be the happiest person in the world. I wouldn't wish this upon somebody I can't stand, my worst enemy in the world. I wouldn't want them to have any of these symptoms ever in their life. So yeah, before I was a carefree, not caring about anything, just doing my own thing, not caring about nothing. After this, I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful to be living, grateful to have a job, grateful to see my niece, grateful to see my dad, grateful to know somebody like yourself. This is beautiful. because in life, you don't realize what can happen. And this happened to me. And then you realize what life's all about. People don't really care about you as an individual. You go through life thinking that, well, other doctors, they're going to help me. They're going to fix me. They're here they got to be smart. They got all these degrees. They got to be able to help me. But at the end of the day, they really don't care about nobody. This is my opinion, but this is how I feel. They don't care. Unless you got your common cold or something obvious, if it's something they got to really spend time on and try to figure out, they're not going to give you the time of day.
Part of why our medical system is broken is they might care if they were in a position where they had more time. But most doctors today are set up in practice to where they don't have the time. That's one of the things that's broken in the medical system that we currently have.
What would you do if there was no LCT test and there was no other test somewhere out there? How were you going to get fixed?
I shudder to think. I was going to ask you, if you had to go back to the beginning of your experience, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently? Could you have done anything?
If I would have known that you might react and we're not sure how your immune system's going to respond, and you might have all these pretty serious health conditions happen to you, where you feel like you might die. Is that what you're asking me? What decision would I make? I probably would say, let's fuse it and then let's take it out after the fact. I mean, that's the only way I can answer that question. I'd ask my doctor, okay, you're going to put this hardware in me. I'm going to fuse. And once I'm fused, can you possibly take this out? Because I might react to it.
It's one of the things they don't tell you. And we have discussed this in an earlier episode, but the medical device manufacturers actually say when you no longer need the hardware, you need to have it removed. And how many times do the doctors let the patients know that, hey, you need to have this removed when you no longer need it? And then who bears the burden of having it removed? You have a recall on your car, you don't have to pay to have the recall fixed. If something's wrong, they'll take it in and they'll fix it. And you don't have to bear that burden, but the patient has to bear the burden of having the hardware put in and having the hardware removed.
Most cases they do. On this last one on me, I didn't have to pay the burden for getting the hardware removed in California. They did. They removed it without me paying anything.
Not because you were maxed out on your insurance?
There's a code number for the insurance company for hardware to be removed. I forget what the name of it. It's like not malfunction, but inflammation due to hardware. It's something along those lines. I really don't know the name of it, but there's a code for it. My doctor said he's going to take care of it. I'm taken care of on that removal. The one here in Michigan, I wasn't taken care of. No, by no means. That was my responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
I get choked up and I get sad when I just think about how horrific it really is. I don't want people to think that there's no hope out there. There's hope out there. But you've got to use your common sense brain. If you have a surgery of any sort and you start having all these off the wall issues, don't just think you're getting sick. It doesn't matter if you're obese or if you're super skinny, or even if you have underlying health conditions that you already had. Let's just say you had, I don't know, some heart condition, but now all of a sudden you're really bad after your surgery with your heart. Well, that's just, you don't go from having a little bit of a heart problem to a huge heart issue, to where your heart is racing nonstop. Don't think for a second that it's not the hardware in you. Don't think that for 1 second. There's something going on. Mm-hmm. And you can't give up. You have to push forward. I don't know how else to say it. It's miserable to go through. If I had that quicker, I probably wouldn't have had to struggle as long as I did. It was just like 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning when I ran into the stuff. It was at night, barely could see. Had my reading glasses on top of my contacts, and I'm going, finally, there's something, this LTT, and then your post that was on the site. If I didn't see that, honestly, I don't think I'd be here. I don't think I was getting to that point. And there's a neurosurgeon talking about putting a spine stimulator in my system. And he's like, I think I need to give you a spine stimulator. I was on a Zoom call with him, and I think I just hung up on him. Because we all know our own body. Everybody has to know their own bodies. Everybody pays attention to their own body, how your body functions, what's right and what's wrong. And I just knew I'm not adding something on top of what I had going on.
That would have been a disaster because spinal stimulators have metal.
Yeah, that also has metal too. So I thank God I just used my common sense and hung up that call with him, because when you're in this situation too, you're also vulnerable too. Not only are you searching for answers, you're very vulnerable. Sometimes no matter what you hear from somebody, it's a voice of hope. So you just go whatever direction you hear. Any positivity. Oh, I can do this for you. So if you hear something, let me look at you. I think I got a solution. But really listen to what they're saying. If their solution makes zero sense, use your common sense going, no, that makes no sense. Also, the money I have spent It's like sad. The money I've spent with testing and surgeries and revisions is over $25,000 that I've spent of my own money. I had it at the time. It's a cushion I had in my account, not meant for these kind of situations. I really went through some funds. Going to try my best to try to build it back up the best way I can. But anybody out there, I'd like to save them from going through all this, obviously, too, because if you don't have money and you had a surgery, I really don't know how people are going to get through it. You need support from other people. You'd have to do a fund me account or something. I don't know how people would do it. I don't have it like I did. You get rid of that kind of money and it's gone. You can't just get it right back. So that's another journey of hard times too. You hurt your wallet, you hurt your bank account, and there's not much you can do.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
So it really is. My goal is to help as many people as I can.
Besides this podcast, what are you doing to do that?
Right now, I wish I could say I'm doing a lot. I've only been a month out since I had everything removed. I mean, staying in touch with you, staying in touch with other people has been tremendous. This podcast here, I hope I'm a reoccurring guest, possibly to talk to other people. The problem with me is I can explain my situation. I am not as qualified with terminology and knowing exact things to do like you and like other people. You guys are very well-rounded compared to me. I can only express my story. I can help a lot of people out, but I can't give the medical advice as good as you and other people we know.
No, this podcast you don't does not give medical advice.
No, this podcast has nothing to do with medical advice. If I could help somebody that's suffering, there's no better feeling. If somebody's in dire straits at a dead-end street and they got nowhere to turn and they don't know what to do, and I'm able to help them come up with a solution to get them back on their feet, that is pretty gratifying. I would never have said this prior to having any of these issues. I don't think I was the kind of guy. I did whatever I wanted to do. I didn't no concern for anybody. Mm-hmm. I think since this happened, I have more compassion for people in general. I don't just think of myself. I think I was probably pretty self-centered and pretty narcissistic prior to this for many, many years. This has changed my outlook on life completely in a better way. I feel better. I have more respect for a lot more people in general than I did in my past. And that's true.
You may have touched on this in kind of a different way, but without giving medical advice, what would you want to leave people with? What would you want people to know?
Without giving medical advice?
Yes.
Yeah, without giving medical advice, I want people to know that there is ways to get better. You're not alone. There is answers out there. You cannot give up whatsoever. There's people out here that can help. Unfortunately, it's not a quick search away. You're not going to find it right away. Hopefully, this podcast itself will start helping a lot of people. I guess that's the real game plan. I just want people to get the right help. That's all I want to do. Without giving medical advice, I want to be able to help people. If this didn't happen to me, there's no way I'd ever be interested in helping somebody. I don't know how anybody in life could suffer the way I was suffering or the way that you suffered or other people have suffered and go, I'm good now, see you later. I'm going to go about my day. There's no way. I feel like I have no choice. I'll stop whatever I'm doing to help somebody. That's the honest to God truth. I'll stop whatever I'm doing. I don't want anybody to go through it whatsoever.
Well, we're really glad you're here. We're really glad you shared the story. I think it's going to help a ton of people. And I just really appreciate you taking the time to share your heart with us.
That's not a problem, Sherry. Like I said earlier, if I didn't meet you, if I didn't find that post of yours on that site, I don't know where I'd be right now.
Happy to be part of the journey.
Yeah,
it takes a village.
Yep, it sure does.
All right, Christian. Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. We will be talking again.
Okay, bye.
I wanted to come on today and give an addendum to the podcast recording that I did with Christian. I had recorded Christian last year, and we had put a pause in airing his story because there were some recent developments, and we wanted to give him some time and space to sort out what was going on with his health situation. And I wanted to come back and report something very interesting. It's a really pivotal issue to discuss, and that is self-advocacy, because every journey is not a perfect journey. And Christian is still very much in the middle of his journey in regards to his metal implant allergies. Christian did see real and undeniable, irrefutable progress
having his hardware removed multiple times. The improvements he had were real and measurable and reproducible. And as you could hear from the podcast, unfortunately, he showed sensitive to one metal in the beginning. And so they used a different metal, and then he developed a sensitivity to that metal, which is common. We do see this in the metal allergic community, that patients do cross-react to different metals. However, something even more unbelievable and tragic happened during the second revision surgery for his lumbar fusion. And that was that the vascular surgeon that performed the surgery, along with Christian's original surgeon that opened him and went in through the front, discussed with the surgeon, whose name I'm going to actually redact from the podcast, because it's not about throwing any particular surgeon or person under the bus. It's about educating the metal allergic population and our doctors and providers as to what to look for. Christian goes to have a revision for a surgery where he is established as a patient who is allergic to titanium, nickel, and other metal components. When Christian went out for his second revision surgery, he didn't find out until months later, when his symptoms reappeared, that when he had his surgery, the vascular surgeon who had entered from the front closed Christian with 17 surgical clips made from titanium. They are in a very delicate place along and near a vascular artery, and Christian is still quite symptomatic. We are unsure at this point if it is the surgical clips that were placed during that surgery or an anterior screw that was placed as part of that surgery. It's a screw with a washer. It's in a very difficult location, as are the surgical clips, as far as getting this hardware removed. So it may be something that Christian will forever have to live with and forever have to mitigate symptoms from. It is not always as simple as some of my surgeries were. You go, you have the hardware put in, you go back, you have the hardware taken out, and you go down the road. It works that way for some people. For people like Christian, it doesn't always have the happiest ending, at least initially. We're hoping that we can get there. We're hoping that we can find a surgeon who is willing and able to remove at least some of the metal that is currently within Christian's body. In the meantime, we definitely, as a metalhead community, need to send all of our thoughts and prayers to Christian. But this goes to illustrate how very, very important it is to advocate. It's really interesting when you read the surgical report, and I'll put it in the show notes. It was discussed after Christian had been put to sleep. The surgical note says, I became aware after the patient was asleep that he's allergic to titanium, and the only clips we had to use for the surgery are titanium. So we doctors discussed it and decided to use the titanium. It's in the notes. Why did it happen after he was asleep? The doctor knew he was there for a revision due to metal allergies. Did the doctor not communicate with the vascular surgeon? Did they just want to save themselves from being embarrassed and not wake him up to find a different option? They could, maybe so. They could cauterize. I had the same surgery Christian had, a 365 fusion. I do have the anterior screw, and that's not in a place where it's advisable to remove it. Fortunately, my quality of life is such that I don't need it removed at this point. It will continue to corrode and do what hardware does, but that surgery is possible to have without the surgical clips. So why that happened, it's absolutely tragic, and it just goes to show how much we have to advocate for ourselves, how much we need to write in our surgical consents that we do not consent to the implantation of more metal hardware and devices, how much we need metal-free alternatives, how much we need to educate doctors and give them options that do not involve metal, and start the dialogue. It's not about embarrassment. For crying out loud, close the patient up and figure out a new plan. Don't just implant the thing you know he's allergic to. I wasn't there. I can't speak to that, but we've done some episodes on surgical clips. I plan to do more, and I have a lot of people that come to me regarding surgical clips and where can I get my surgical clips removed? We know they're a problem, but there have been several doctors who remove surgical clips who have decided not to remove surgical clips, at least for the time being. Not because it's not valuable, not because they didn't see the benefit, but because it's not a perfect process. And I think patients have to have the realistic expectation that it's not a perfect process. Surgery has risks. Patients can become septic. Clips can get missed. We're going to have a patient on the podcast who had 130 clips removed from her abdomen. The surgeon missed 3 of them because they slid behind the liver or something else happened. We are not in the surgeon's shoes. Sometimes they can't remove them. Sometimes there's a risk to remove them. Sometimes they slip and hide in places where the surgeon can't see them. In the particular case I just told you about, that patient had decades of pelvic pain that went away, and she'll be on to tell her own story. She still had 3 clips that were missed. And for a while, people made a big deal about that. But the thing is, the surgery is not perfect. Surgeons aren't perfect. The process isn't perfect. We have to give grace to the providers that are trying to advance forward our cause. We have to go in not as hysterical patients about the symptoms. You have to help me. You have to this, you have to that. We have to show gratitude. We have to show grace, and we have to show forgiveness, and we have to show tolerance where the surgical procedure isn't perfect. And if there's a complication, we can't immediately blame the surgeon. Sometimes it's the patient's own individual immune presentation or physical presentation. Surgery is not without risk. It is not perfect. Mistakes happen. Accidents happen. Death happens. That's why the surgical consent is a mile long. But God bless all of you providers that are out there willing to entertain new paradigms and to make a difference. And for those of us still on our journey, navigating a difficult spot in the road, let's all pray and support each other, and let's make the journey easier for each other and not harder. I'm super grateful for the understanding of my metalhead community and wanted to come on with this little epilogue and reminder that it's not always wine and roses. So let's support the people that are trying to make a difference. Let's pray for those still in the journey. Let's have grace and tolerance for everybody, patients, surgeons, doctors, and let's gently and effectively educate and gain ground a little bit at a time until we reach our final goal, even if it's decades from now. And even if the benefit isn't to us personally, if it benefits our children or our grandchildren, the effort will all be worthwhile. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and for being part of the effort to put forth a new medical narrative and to tell the current medical establishment that the way it's being done isn't how we do it anymore. We're not going to take it anymore.
Thank you for tuning in today. Please don't forget to follow me on social media and to like, share, and subscribe. My primary mission is reaching out to others who may be suffering from hypersensitivity reactions to metal implants and pointing them to resources that can assist with hope, help, and healing. If you know someone that suffers from a chronic illness, you might ask if they have any implanted metal hardware and if they've ever had a reaction to jewelry or metals of any kind. Might not even be on their radar. Visit us at heavilymetaled.com, where you can find images and documentation relating to our show today, as well as a number of valuable resources and links to assist you on your own personal healing journey. Until next time, keep on rocking.